Good evening. I'm Russ Brown. Tonight's ticker is brought to you by the Department of Health and Human Services. David Nunez has been named the Big Ten Freshman of the Week. This past weekend, he led Husker baseball, going 7-14 at the plate with a home run, 3 RBI, and 4 runs scored. Nunez slugged .714 with an OBP of .533. Tuesday's baseball game against Omaha has been postponed due to the forecasted weather. The game will be made up at Tal Anderson Field in Omaha on April the 2nd. Switching to hoops, the Nebraska women's team is headed to Indianapolis for the Big Ten tournament. The Huskers face Rutgers at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. Pre-game coverage begins on HRN at 4:30 with Matt Coody and Jeff Griesch. The winner will face Michigan at 5:30 on Thursday. There is one game on the docket tonight in Big Ten basketball. UCLA visits Northwestern for an 8 o'clock tip. You can catch that on FS1. And in the top 25, it's Wake Forest visiting number 2 Duke. That one is just tipped off in Durham. And then later tonight, number 3 Houston hosts Kansas. You can see both of those matchups on ESPN. Call a timeout. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is there. Call, text, or chat 988. It's free, confidential, and staffed with trained counselors ready to listen and provide support. Coming up, it's hour number 1 of Sports Nightly right here on the HRN.
Coming to you live from Memorial Stadium, it's Sports Nightly. All the Huskers, all the time. Sports Nightly is presented to you by the NDOT Highway Safety Office, who remind you to buckle up and put the phone down.
Williams to throw it in for the Huskers. Do they have a basket in them on this position? They get it into Morgan, to Williams. Williams up top left against Fox, puts it up. Got it! 3-point ball game. Bang! Bang! All right. Bryso. 52-49. Nebraska's cut a 19-point deficit to 3.
Petrie, 2 feet in the paint. Markowski backs down Walsh, puts it up, and it counts. And a foul. She's got 30. 30 points for Alexis Markowski.
Here's Peterson's 1-0. That swung on and drilled towards the right field, towards the angling, towards the waterfall, and splashdown. Cale Frost with his second home run of the game. And the Huskers take a 4-3 lead.
2-1 the count. The pitch. Cusack swings and lifts this one. Right center and deep, and it is gone! 2-run home run, Ava Cusack. Her second home run of the inning. 14-0 Nebraska.
Now, here are your hosts, Jessica Coody and Nick Hanley, on the Huskers Radio Network.
Hey everybody, happy Monday to you. We've got a full 2 hours coming your way here tonight on Sports Nightly. Jessica Coody, Nick Hanley here with you tonight. Nick, I know better. I've been here now. This is my 4th spring, but I started kind of liking this warmer weather and started feeling like I could maybe put up some of my sweaters and snow boots, but I guess that is not the case. As we heard, the baseball game tomorrow has been postponed. Darn it.
Jessica.
I know.
What are you thinking? We've had snowstorms in May in Nebraska. I mean, come on. Now, not lately, though. So that's, at least I understand that part, especially your time since you've been here. We haven't dealt with that. When you get the notification on your phone that there's a blizzard warning, but it's only going to go 1 to 3 inches because we have 70-mile-an-hour winds. If that ain't Nebraska weather, I don't know what is. I mean, that sums it up right there. So yeah, I was getting a lot of snark on Twitter after I had tweeted out the change, and people are like, "Oh, what? They don't want to play in 50-mile-an-hour rain snow mix tomorrow? What the heck? What are these guys doing?"
If we were hearing blizzards in March, I know, but I just maybe wishful thinking, thought maybe we're getting there. You know, it's also still light outside now. We're getting to that point where, you know, it's going to be light during Sports Nightly, which I also like. So that's one thing I'm going to have to get better at, because our fearless leader, Greg Sharp, was the master at making sure we all knew the weather, what to wear, what to pack, and when to change your clocks back. So I'm going to try to be better at that. But we celebrated his life over the weekend on Friday, and that was one thing we heard a lot about, was how Greg was on top of everything with the weather. And so we're going to have to, be better at that for him, because he was one that kind of looked out for all of us on that regard.
Yeah, I guarantee you, if the scenario was what it was this last weekend, let's say if it was Ben and Greg that were doing the game this weekend, and then say Greg and I were going to do the game tomorrow, or Ben and I were going to do the game tomorrow. Either way, Greg would have probably texted me or called and said, boy, I don't know about Tuesday's not looking good. I don't know if we're going to get one in. It just and then what he'd always do is after that, he would already have the 10 to 14 day forecast already locked in though. But after that, I think we'll be okay. We just got to get through Tuesday. We're probably not going to have that happen, but we need to. We're looking good next week. So he had like the future forecast down too. I mean, it wasn't just the day or the next 2 days. He usually had the extended forecast down.
Yes, and so definitely one of the many, many things we're going to miss about him around here. But a beautiful service on Friday. Heard a lot of great stories and just was really nice. So did want to mention that. But, we will find out, right? Leaning towards probably not happening on Wednesday as well, maybe postponing that one, and maybe even some potential changes to Friday and the weekend's home opener schedule.
Yeah, it's not ideal right now. The good thing about Friday is it is an afternoon game, so at least you're going to hit the day where it's going to have its warmest part of the day, and you're not worrying about once the sun goes down that you got to deal with that. So I think there's still a puncher's chance for Friday, depending on if they can get it in, find a little bit of a dry spot. You can play in the 40s. It's just a matter of what that natural surface is holding as far as what we get from a snow and a rain standpoint here in the next 48 hours. But, yeah, Wednesday, I don't know. A lot of this depends on what comes through the next 24 hours in Lincoln. If I were a betting man, I would think that much like they did today to look for an open window to play Omaha on a different day, which as you heard there in the ticker that it'll be on the 2nd. I would think that South Dakota State also being a regional team that maybe you can find a time that will work out where you can have them come back to Haymarket Park. I haven't even looked at their schedule when they play Omaha in Omaha, so maybe it lines up with their travel schedule whenever they play them. But yeah, Wednesday I would say is if I were to guess, I'd say 70-30 that thing might get moved.
Well, 402-413-2400 is that number if you want to be a part of the show tonight. We do have Jeremiah Sirles coming up here in just a few minutes. Going to hear from him, check in with the big dog as we have some football news. You know, he disappears during this time, but we were able to catch up with him recently. So, and catch up on some of his thoughts on some of the latest Husker football news. We'll have that. And then, yeah, we're going to talk some baseball, but let's start with the hoops part of it. Should we start with the good news or the bad news?
You know, I'm always usually, let's start with a positive. It's Monday. We need to get right to the positives first.
All right. Well, Nebraska women's basketball really had an impressive finish to the regular season with a big win at Northwestern, which, they needed to get some momentum going into the postseason. And, with that win, feel really, really good, pretty confident about them solidifying their spot in the NCAA tournament. They locked up the 10 seed in the Big Ten tournament. They'll play Rutgers, and with the win, they'd play Illinois. But on Wednesday night, they will play Rutgers in the opening round. But they've taken care of business enough that you feel pretty good no matter what happens with them. But that was a great performance for them. You get Britt Prince back, and Matt Coody is telling us that she looked like she was back to pretty close to 100% and seemed to be pretty good watching her throughout practices throughout the weekend. So that's good news, getting her back full speed going into this tournament. And yeah, you have good performance once again at Alexis Markowski, but that's the kind of performance you want going into March and into the Big Ten tournament.
Absolutely. And what did we talk about last week on what was kind of I didn't want to say it was a scary or trap type game. Northwestern was playing with a lot of desperation. You knew they would, because there was a scenario that if they won and had some help around them, that they could have got into the Big Ten tournament. And it's senior night. You mentioned that last week too when we were talking about this. It just made for an uncomfortable setting for the simple fact that Nebraska's health was still a little bit of a concern. And even with Alexis Markowski and tweaking the back, and we were hoping that Britt Prince would be back. And I think now my biggest question, Jessica, was if Britt Prince could have maybe returned the previous game. And I think the answer could have been yes if it was an emergency situation or if it was a situation, say, in the tournament. But I think that extra game out, she looked a lot more to form. And I heard the same thing that you mentioned about Coody talking about her overall performance looked very, if you didn't know she was injured previously, you wouldn't have known the way that she played. So that's a great sign. It looks like all of that is behind her. Alexis Markowski looked great. She was in great health, obviously, with what she was able to do there, especially in the first quarter, let alone the entire game. And then you get contributions off the bench as well. What they did in this game is exactly what you want to see against a team that has just not had success, and that is you take the will out of them in the first 5 minutes of this game. And that's what Nebraska did. And that's what a good basketball team should do against a team that's not so good. And that's what was great to see is they left no doubt. They didn't leave Northwestern hanging around at all. By halftime, they had put every bit of doubt into that locker room at Northwestern. And so kudos for Amy Williams having them prepared that way and having them with the mentality of they're going to be the more physical team. They're going to be the toughest team out there. They're going to knock shots. They're going to use the advantages that they have, and they're going to exploit Northwestern. Everything that I guarantee you was on the scouting report and was written up on the chalkboard or the grease board before they took the floor, they checked all those boxes, and that's what you want to see this time of the year.
So again, coming up around 5 o'clock or so, it'll depend on the games before, if they go long or whatnot, but around 5 o'clock, Matt Coatney, Jeff Grease will be set to go on the pregame show around 4:30, so we'll have the coverage for you here on the Huskers Radio Network. We're going to dive more into the matchup with Rutgers and the postseason, all that tomorrow night with Matt Coatney, so you can tune in then. We'll talk more about the road ahead for Nebraska women's basketball, but man, a tough one on Saturday for Nebraska men's basketball as we flip towards the not so good news in regards of Husker hoops. But you had a good stretch there in the second half, but got down too much, and it was too much of a mountain to climb to get back in. You take the lead late, but you just heard just the really. One of the, I would say probably the most disappointed, or one of the most disappointed Fred Hoibergs that we've heard all season long. They've had some tough losses, but you could tell that one really hurt him after the loss to that one. And, you talked about just they didn't have the sense of urgency that they needed out of the gate. And by the time they realized, hey, we got to get this going, it was just a little too late.
And I sense the frustration of him speaking today, too. I think he understands that this is a team that even a week and a half ago looked solidly in if they just took care of business in the games that they needed to take care of. And now he sees a team that is playing their way out of the tournament. And that's a frustrating feeling to go through when you had a lot of things work your way early in the season and some big marquee victories. And then all of a sudden, whatever buttons are being pushed or whatever those situations that are creeping up in the first half. And he talked about it today, that the head's hanging. And I know that was something that Bryce Williams brought up too, that certain things have to change. And Fred alluded to, I think it's the hanging of the heads or doubting themselves. And this was such a confident, I think, resilient team. And so it leads me to believe they still are. They still have that. I fully believe that they could still go to Columbus, given that they had success, and win that basketball game. They need contributions from other guys other than Juwan Gary and Bryce, but there is that mentality that Fred talked about of when Ohio State goes on the run, whatever it is, which they will, how does this team respond? How does this team handle that? Are they hanging their heads, or are they actually coming back out, throwing haymakers of their own? The whole mental part of this entire week is going to be really interesting to see how this team responds. This is where I think you like that you have a veteran group. And I think you kind of heard the head man. Now, I wouldn't say call anybody out, but he definitely challenged even some of his most valuable players. He challenged Juwan Gary to be even better than he's been when it comes to leading this team, and Bryce Williams to be even better than he's been. I think those challenges are not something you do as a head coach unless you feel not only is Ohio State can be desperate, but you need to be that team that shows that desperation as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this team responds tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where the scary part lies, in that you have a team that can compete and beat and be right there with the best teams in the league, and then you have a team that doesn't show up. And the scary part is that it's still pretty inconsistent right now at the time of the season when you want to start putting your best ball together. And it's just, if this is the best version of Nebraska basketball comes and plays Ohio State tomorrow, you feel really good about them going and picking up a win at Ohio State. But if it's the team that maybe we've seen that's been a little bit more inconsistent, then you're a little bit worried here with them closing out with these last two games.
Yeah, and he mentioned Berkay during the press conference again today. And if we remember the last time he had his most offensive impact before the injury, it was that game in Lincoln against this very Ohio State team. Do you get the feeling, Jessica, that if he can just give you some type of resemblance of that offensively? He didn't have a good game against Minnesota. Defensively, pretty solid in the previous game, but not a great game offensively. And Fred said as much, and he said, Berkay would say the same thing. Do you get the feeling that if they can get a little bit more out of him, that solidifies a little bit of what they can max out offensively? I feel like I don't want to put that much pressure on him, but I feel like if you're getting 8 to 10 from him, Connor Essegian's going to knock down a couple of triples every now and then. But I just feel like Berkay, the way this team was before he got injured, was starting to, I think, get everybody very excited about what the prospects of this team could be, because all of a sudden the big man was starting to knock down some shots. If they could get something out of him offensively, I think in this week, then I feel a lot better about what this team could do in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it with every successful Fred Hoiberg team that's ever, I feel like, existed. When they have a big that can stretch the floor like Berkay was starting to do, it just is really what makes things go with this offense. And so if he can knock down some of those shots from the outside, that's when you really see this offense, be an offense that is pretty hard to stop. And so you hope that maybe he can tap into some of that, what he had the last time that this team played Ohio State. But we talked about this when he's coming off the injury, that it's great to have him back, but unfortunately that is sometimes can be a process for guys to get back into that rhythm. And I think we're still seeing that, hopefully, with this week now, this turnaround, and then going into the next game against Iowa on Sunday, you have a little bit more time that maybe he can find that rhythm again. But yeah, it certainly would help if he could get going, and, you have some help beyond Bryce Williams for sure. But let's get to a break here on Sports Nightly. On the other side of this, we're going to hear from the big dog, Jeremiah Sirles, checking in. We're going to talk some of the Husker football news that has unfolded over the last couple of months since we've been able to talk to Sirles. And then we'll talk more hoops coming up here over the next couple of hours. But on the other side of this, we're going to have a portion of the Sideline Slice with Jeremiah Sirles. Keep it here on Sports Nightly.
Here in Nebraska, we love our teachers. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Nebraska is teaming up with Husker Athletics to recognize teachers who help students live their best and healthiest lives. Visit huskers.com/touchdown for teachers today to tell us about your favorite Nebraska educator. Winning teachers get a school day visit from Herbie Husker and a VIP experience at the 2025 Husker football spring game, thanks to their biggest fans at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Nebraska. Head to huskers.com/touchdown for teachers today.
You expect your home to protect everything you love, but you don't expect the ways water is breaking down your basement and damaging your home. Mold, cracks, and of course visible water are just a few signs your basement is compromised. But there's one way to get answers to all your concerns: a free home inspection from Groundworks. We put water back in its place. Get your free inspection at groundworks.com. License number C142293.
Hit us up on the text line. Text 402-413-2400 with your Husker thoughts.
Nebraskans are choosing chiropractic for better health. Why chiropractic? Because it's safe, drug-free, and a cost-effective treatment option for back and joint pain. Plus, all generations can benefit from natural chiropractic care. Choose chiropractic first for pain relief or to improve your mobility, athletic performance, or overall wellness. Make chiropractic your first choice for better health, and find a chiropractic physician near you at nebraska-chiropractic.org. Get your life back with chiropractic.
The signs are everywhere. It's time for Truck Month at your Midwest Ford dealers. Get $3,000 cash on Super Duty and save on Ford F-150. Both part of F-Series, America's best-selling truck lineup for 48 years. Hurry in, folks. These trucks are running. Drive a new Ford Super Duty with $3,000 cash or 1.9% financing. Only at your Midwest Ford dealers, driven by value.
Huskers fans, let's call a timeout on the court and in life. When the game gets tough, Nebraska stands together as a family, as a team. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is there. Call, text, or chat 988. It's free, confidential, and staffed with trained counselors ready to listen and provide support. You're part of the Husker family, and every member is valued on and off the court. Remember, in times of need, call a timeout. Call, text, or chat 988. Presented by Nebraska DHHS.
You expect your home to protect everything you love, but you don't expect that water is the reason parts of your concrete have gotten so uneven. Walkway tripping hazards, sinking pool deck, cracked driveways are dangerous threats to everyone's safety. But there's one way to learn how your concrete can be lifted. A free home inspection from Groundworks. We put water back in its place. Get your free inspection at groundworks.com. License number C142293.
What does it mean to be locally owned and operated? For Cenex, it means everything. It means that we know if you take your coffee to go or if you like to stay a while. It means we've helped Little Leagues get jerseys and local festivals get funding. It means we know what our communities need. So you'll always leave Cenex with a full tank, full of snacks, or full of smiles. Or all of the above. And that means the world to us. Cenex, powered locally.
For farmers, sustainability is a way of life. 97% of farms are family-owned, and 95% are participating in conservation programs and using sustainable practices.
I'm Ann Meese, a farmer near Elgin, Nebraska. I grew up on this land, and we're dedicated to being good stewards and leaving it better for the next generation.
Since 1980, U.S. soybean farmers have boosted production by 130%, all while lowering emissions and improving land and water use. Nebraska soybeans, feeding, fueling, and innovating for the future.
The Huskers Radio Network Broadcast Center is sponsored by Akrs, the Midwest premier John Deere dealer, supplying the equipment and service to advance agriculture and much more. Akrs, solutions for every field. Welcome back to Sports Nightly. I'm Jessica Coody, and recently had a chance to catch up with the big dog, Jeremiah Sirles. He disappears during this time of year. He's got a lot going on with his agent business. He was at the Combine all last week, so this is a busy time of the year. But we were able to catch up with him a couple weeks ago and chat about a lot of the recent Husker news that has unfolded with Husker football here over the last few months. So let's start with the hiring of Mike Eckler as the special teams coordinator. Mike Eckler has been named the special teams coordinator, and you were fired up. You sent me a text. You were excited about this one.
It's hard not to be excited about Mike Eckler. The dude is just, if you look up intense emotion in the dictionary, Mike Eckler's picture is sitting right there. I mean, this dude is high energy, high emotion, gets the most out of his players I've ever seen. He was in the initial part of my recruiting when I was getting recruited to Nebraska. He was obviously here for a couple of years as the linebackers coach and then a special teams ace. And you talk about what was an Achilles heel for Nebraska this year, our special teams. I mean, and it wasn't just one phase. It was kickoff, kick return, punt return, field goal, all of it, right? So to bring a guy in that knows what this place is about, has a lot of history here, wants to come in, right the ship on the special teams, that is as slam dunk as a hire as you could have asked for from the special teams position here with Mike Eckler.
What is it about what he does that it translates to special team success? Why is he successful in that area?
You know, special teams is such a unique phase of the game. It's all about emotion and energy and bringing it on every single play because you never know which special teams can flip the entire game, right? You can't take special teams for granted, right? Oh, it's just a punt. We're going to come out here. He's going to fair catch it, and we're just going to go and get our offense or our defense out on the field. Be a difference maker, right? And when your coach is that excitement, guys, we're gonna punt the football, and everyone's like, yeah, right? Like there's just an excitement level that he brings that is just impossible. That if you don't match it, he ain't gonna put you on the field. Now, if you can't match it in practice and when he wants it in the attention to the meeting room, if you don't know what he's doing, he's not going to put you out on the field. So I know when those special teams guys walk out there in week one or whatever, it's going to be hair on fire, running to the football, celebrating with your teammates, all 11 guys to the ball. I mean, it's going to be a different type of intensity that we see from our special teams this year. I have no doubt about that in my mind.
Can't wait. Well, he's one of 3 new coordinators that will be here this spring. And we got to see a little bit of Dano Holgerson towards the end of last season. But how crazy is that? How different is that going to be for this football team going through a spring football? I know it's a little bit different because you've had some opportunities to work with some of these guys other than Coach Eckler. But what does that do for a football team when you are working in 3 new coordinators for the first time in a spring?
Yeah, spring's a great time to really kind of start everything fresh again, right? Hey, new coordinators, you'll have some new players, new positions, new guys, some old faces, but it's a great chance to, hey, the baseline is wiped clean. Everything you did last year, you got to prove it again this year, and it all starts in the spring. People are learning it from whether you're a multi-year starter or not. You still got to learn how I want things done, and the best will play. And so it kind of levels the playing field, which is great. On the competition side, it does put you a little bit behind the 8 ball of the development side, right? You love when you come into a spring ball with a third-year coordinator. Everyone knows what is expected. The whole offense can be installed in like the first week, and then you're really just sharpening the sword there of what you want to get good at. This is going to be a little bit more of a slower install spring. Make sure we get everything in, take a little bit more time, right? And just make sure we get everything installed properly and not just rush through an install. So it's going to be a very different type of spring than it's been the last couple of years on both sides of the ball of true install and teaching versus getting out there and really sharpening skills.
Well, on that note, let's continue there. We have heard from Troy Dan and Matt Rule that the spring game is going to look different, not really going to be a game. What's your take on that? And just the importance of keeping guys healthy and then not putting too much out there, as we heard Coach Rule talk about.
I don't know how I want to answer this.
Also, you have to keep in mind too. You have to keep in mind too that the roster is going to be smaller, and so you don't have the capabilities of putting out 2 full teams that you've had in the past.
Yes and no. The fan in me is upset. It's sad, right? Because the spring game was always so fun ever since I got done playing in Nebraska. Being able to go to the spring game and experience kind of a game day environment and get that little bit of that football itch done in April was always was nice and was fun. And from taking my kid standpoint, and I think a lot of Husker Nation enjoyed that piece too, without the emotional swing of winning or losing a game on a Saturday, right? Like it was a true just enjoyment of a Husker football game instead of when you go to a Husker game in fall, it's going to affect your mood for the next 48 hours, good or bad, right? But I also fully understand that times have changed. The transfer portal, poaching, NIL has completely shifted the landscape of what we thought and know college football is, and it's only going to continue to shift. And so I fully respect and I'm fully behind Matt Rule wanting to protect the program, protect his players, and really try and just put together the best roster he can without injuries and without guys going out and a freshman that we haven't heard of, because it always happens. Every year there's a kid that lights the spring game on fire, and we don't want to, oh my gosh, who's that kid? Hey, Kentucky, we're going to offer this kid $100,000 to come to school, right? That's what college football is right now. It's nuts. So I totally understand what is happening, and I totally support Matt Rule behind it. I am just sad from the fans' perspective.
Yeah, and they're working on making it, going to, do their best to make it a fun event, and, more details are going to come out, maybe involving some other sports and just having it be more of an event, and we'll see how it unfolds. It might, change a couple times, but it's still going to be a fun day that you can come out and gather and celebrate this football team in the spring. Yeah,
and, it's kind of taking a page out of the NFL. The Pro Bowl is no longer the Pro Bowl. It's the skills challenge or whatever it is, because when you start paying guys money and when you start asking them, hey, we're paying you a large sum of money to perform in the fall, you don't want to risk anything of them getting injured or not being on your football team before you even make it to the fall, right? It's why guys didn't like playing in the Pro Bowl anymore. Like, I don't want to go play another football game and maybe get hurt in the Pro Bowl when I'm trying to make X amount of millions next year, right? So there is a little bit of a business side to it now where you have to protect your investment. Players are now becoming investments with the amount of money that they are making. Well, let's talk the transfer portal now that season has closed for now. The first one. Open back up in the spring, which, we talked about this a couple weeks ago when they announced that they were trying to shorten the windows and maybe even get rid of that second window. But don't you feel like that second window is probably going to be needed when you
go through a spring football and evaluate what you have and what you might need to add to the roster so that you can go compete the way you want to compete in the fall?
Yeah, I think the spring window is actually very important, for a couple of reasons. One, with all the points you just mentioned of, hey, where are the holes in our roster that we didn't think we had holes in, but now through 8 weeks of spring football, we realize, hey, we really lack on linebacker depth or interior line depth or whatever it might be. And just to go out there, I don't think there's not usually as big blockbuster signings like there are in the early portal window, because guys are fairly locked up that are starters. But I do think you can get some really good depth pieces and younger guys that you recognize, hey, in 2 years or in 1 year, this guy could be a dude for us. Let's get him in the building now and get him on that developmental side. Maybe not a this year contributor, but a next year contributor. I think that's important for spring ball too. And also there's going to be some guys that you were maybe a little iffy on that you can then say, thanks, but no thanks. Maybe you should hit the portal too, right? There's always that piece of it too when it comes to building a roster now, the way you have to build it in college football.
Well, the Huskers finished this last transfer portal window as had the top class, transfer portal class in the Big Ten, one of the best in the country.
Off-season national champs. Off-season national champs. No, I mean, I love it. We every year we get it and we do the right things, and I think that is fantastic for a program.
I will argue, though, this transfer portal class is on a different level than what they've even had in the past.
Agreed. I agree. And I'm not saying that with any, I'm somewhat joking because everyone likes to make the joke, but if you continue to win the offseason, that's going to contribute to more wins.
Yeah.
Right? We don't win and go to a bowl game this year if we don't have Isaiah Nair. Right? Huge piece of this offense this year. Right? Do we win as many games? We don't have Dante Dowdell. No, right? So, I mean, doing things right in the offseason and winning the offseason and having the highest rated transfer portal class means something. That's important. It means you've got guys that believe in what Matt Rule is teaching, believe in what this Husker program is preaching, and want to come be a part of it, right? When you get guys, offensive linemen from Notre Dame, Alabama, right, that want to come up here and play in Big Ten football, and they pick Nebraska when they probably had offers from every other Big Ten school, that means something. That means that there's a growth and a belief in that building that people are fired up about.
Yeah, so I don't even think I really need to ask this question, but we'll just go ahead. And which transfer portal
Elijah Pritchett and Rocco Spindler.
Are you the most excited about?
Yeah.
I knew I didn't even.
Yeah. No, don't even ask the question. Just save your breath.
But what are we getting? What is Husker football getting in those two guys? I mean, we've talked so much over the last 3 years about the depth in that room. It's continuing to build. I think it's getting closer and closer to being where it needs to be. But when you add those veteran guys that have started at programs like you just mentioned, just a huge, boost to the depth and the talent and the experience, which is so important in this league, of that offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, this offensive line lost some guys that have been there for a long time. I mean, Bryce Benhart has had the right tackle position locked down since I played in the NFL, right?
And he passed your start record, by the way.
Yeah, that's 6 years asterisk, right? Ben Scott, staple at center there for a while. Guys like Teddy and Turner have kind of rotated that left tackle position now for multiple years. I'm excited to get some veteran guys in here. Right? Rocco started in a national championship game this year. He knows what it takes to push the ball all the way up the hill to the national championship. Alabama, tried and true tested of SEC competition, playing a tackle spot, right? And you pair that with some of the youth and the guys like Gunnar Gatula last year, who had some really good reps under his belt, and I thought got better as the year progressed. And now he gets to go into a winter and a spring with, hey, I know what it takes to play in this league, and I know the strength I need to gain here with Corey Campbell in the weight room. Right? All of that stuff continues to move. You got Evan last year, who played some really meaningful snaps at left guard, who's probably going to move into center now. Right? There's a lot of shifting parts on that offensive line. And when you can bring guys in that are not first-time starters, that have started big-time games before, that can help just kind of settle that room, right? We still need to continue to build depth because, as I talk about every year on this show, offensive line is a war of attrition. Very rarely do the starting five play all 12 games, right? So you've got to continue to build the depth. But overall, very excited about what that room is going to look like next year, and really excited to see kind of who emerges in the spring of some of those young cats that could come out and make a push for a starting job this year.
We talk about this every time we get through this season and we're this time of year. But remind us again, and for those that might not be familiar, just this time, what's going on with this team, what's important about this time, and what is this team looking to accomplish in this time when You aren't fully practicing in football. I know you get some extra time, and they're running some. I know Dylan's getting the receivers out there, but just the time in the weight room. What is this time like, and what needs to be accomplished during this time?
Bigger, faster, stronger.
Yeah.
Right. That is what the winter is all about. There's no game laying in the distance. There's no practices that you're preparing for. Your job right now is to eat protein and pick heavyweight up and put it back down. Like that's what your job is this time of year. And it's the greatest time of year to be a football player. Listen, I love the games. I love playing in front of full stadiums. Like, that was amazing. But this time of year, when your literal job is to walk in the weight room and just grind, right? How big can I get? How strong can I get? How many gains can I make here that'll then I'll be able to go and put on display in spring football, and it'll carry me into the fall. Right? This is a great time of year for development in the weight room side of it. And honestly, it's some of my favorite times, and favorite memories with some of my teammates.
Yeah, you said it a lot. I can't believe your favorite time is this time, because we just hear all the time about how tough it is. Like you said, just a grind.
It's a huge grind.
But
when you're doing it together.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It really brings guys together, it seems like, because the only guy next to you knows what you're feeling right now.
You were an athlete too, Jess. Like, you remember the days, like Ron Brown had a great saying, I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's, emptiness is created in empty stadiums and revealed in full stadiums. Right? So, like, when no one's watching and when the stadium is empty, that is when greatness is created. When you're pushing each other and there's no eyes to cheer you on, no one to bring the juice, only you can bring the juice. And if you don't bring it, someone else better bring it, and you better match their juice. That's when greatness is created. And then once the eyes are there and everyone's there, it's easy to get yourself up. That's when you get to put it on full display. And that's what should be happening in that ginormous warehouse of a weight room there at One Memorial Drive.
Great stuff there. Always enjoy chatting with the big dog, Jeremiah Sirles. That was the Sideline Slice presented by Valentino's Pizza, the official pizza of the Huskers. Got to step aside for a break. Back with more coming up right after this. Woodhouse has been a trusted partner in your everyday since 1975. Shop for your next vehicle with the home team at Woodhouse and the official auto dealer of Nebraska Athletics.
When you're in the stands and have the ability to control your irrigation in the field, it's a game-changing moment. Valley is where farming meets end zone efficiency. With AgSense remote irrigation technology, farmers become the MVPs of their fields. Experience real-time, play-by-play action and control that keeps you ahead. Score big with irrigation technology from Valley. It's technology that improves your life and lets you be at the game and in the game. Find your local Valley dealer at valleyirrigation.com.
Hit us up on the text line. Text 402-413-2400 with your Husker thoughts.
Hello, Husker Nation. This is Lexi Rodriguez, All-American Libero, serving you an ace on behalf of Noddle Companies based in Omaha, Nebraska. Noddle Companies is a full-service leader in commercial real estate, digging deep to create thriving communities like the Builders District, Exarban Village, and the contemporary row house townhomes. They bring world-class concepts in fashion, great eats, gorgeous homes, and green spaces, all professionally managed by Noddle Services. To dig up more information, find them on Facebook and Instagram. Noddle Companies, building a better Nebraska.
Dear Truckin' Awesome. Want more horsepower in the stable? The Tundra iForce Max is the most powerful Tundra ever. With its electrifying twin-turbo V6, you got everything you need. Saddle up the Tacoma TRD Pro. Its segment-first performance seats are designed to smooth out the shocks when the ride gets bumpy. The Toyota 4Runner is part mean streak, part wild side, and an all-around icon. Check out that signature power rear window, will ya? Yes, sir, Toyota trucks. Find yours at toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
See your Omaha Metro and Lincoln Toyota dealers. Corwin Toyota of Bellevue, Village Point Toyota of Omaha, Baxter Toyota of La Vista, or Baxter Toyota of Lincoln.
Nebraska soybeans power everyday products, from Goodyear tires and Skechers shoes to soy-based turf and fire suppressants. These innovations replace petroleum and utilize other components of the soybean, leading to more sustainable products worldwide.
I'm Doug Sadoff, a farmer near Trumbull, Nebraska. Thanks to cutting-edge research, soybeans are now in everything from tires to turf. It's amazing to see how these advancements are unlocking new potential for our crops.
Soybeans are a win for every product and everyone. Nebraska soybeans, feeding, fueling, and innovating for the future.
The signs are everywhere. It's time for Truck Month at your Midwest Ford dealers. Get up to $6,000 cash on F-150 and save on Ford Super Duty. Both part of F-Series, America's best-selling truck lineup for 48 years. Hurry in, folks. These trucks are running. Drive a new Ford F-150 with up to $6,000 cash or 1.9 financing plus $3,250 cash. Only at your Midwest Ford dealers, driven by value.
If you've been looking for a reason to fill up your car with unleaded 88, how about this? Unleaded 88
can help you save big at the pump
and save the planet by cutting greenhouse gas emissions.
Any car 2001 or newer is approved to use unleaded 88. Speaking of good, it's made from corn, which is great for farmers.
As I was saying, if you need a reason to choose unleaded 88, there you have them. Unleaded 88. Engine smart, earth kind. Visit chooseunleaded88.com to learn more.
The Huskers Radio Network Broadcast Center is sponsored by Akrs, the Midwest premier John Deere dealer, supplying the equipment and service to advance agriculture and much more. Akrs, solutions for every field. Always a treat to hear from Jeremiah Sirles. And, you know, kind of what, Nick, you talked about when we first got the news about Mike Eckler. Sirles is a guy that was recruited by Mike Eckler and then played on a team that he was a part of and saw firsthand, and he was fired up about that hire. Thinks he's going to do wonders, work wonders with a special teams unit.
The whole part of what you and I have discussed many times with the different coaching changes and what some of these new personalities can bring to this team, I think are all unique, but really needed in all different ways. And I don't know if a guy that has the type of energy level that Mike Eckler has is exactly what Nebraska was missing. But when I look at his track record at Tennessee, and just like Sirles talked about too, just that overall ability to connect with players and to be able to get the most out of them. Again, when you can take a position player that really wants to focus on the defensive side of the football and maybe thinks they have a future in the pros there, or on the offensive side, same thing, but you can get them to sell out on special teams, which we've now seen how important that truly is, that third phase that has unfortunately just been so inconsistent for Nebraska. The track record on top of that infectious personality and that energy, I cannot see how this is not going to work when it does come to a much-needed upgrade there.
So we are set to hear from the three other new assistants coming up tomorrow. We'll hopefully have them stop by the studio as well and be able to bring you those conversations here over the next, well, whenever we have shows. I don't know. It's kind of that time of the year where it depends on basketball tournaments and baseball games, if we'll have shows or not, but we'll keep you posted from day to day. We will have an hour tomorrow, so we are hoping to bring you one of those interviews tomorrow. So, and then I know that Coach Rule is hopefully going to meet with the media another time, and then it'll be spring break, and then it's time for spring football. It's crazy. We are at that time again where we are about to start taking the field again for spring football, but there's a lot of things to look out for this spring, this time around this spring football.
Yeah, no question. And I think we had a chance to, as you mentioned, we heard from some of the coaches last week. We'll continue to hear from them and a lot of the new voices at those different position groups. But you know, for me, a lot of it is going to be, how do some of those young players, we talked a lot about those players last week, some of the ones that we expect to be even bigger leadership roles this year. How are they mentally, but also physically? Dylan's footwork, how is that looking? The arm strength, the accuracy, everything taking another year to evolve into the type of quarterback that I know he expects himself to be. And in Ja'Cory Barney, we were talking about Vincent Shavers and his PFF grade and what he did. How does he now take that next step? And then some of those other guys that were like the Riley Van Poppels that had that redshirt year. Guys like Cam Lenhart that are looking to make a big jump now that you've cleared some space on that defensive line and said goodbye to some very, very good players. Now it's these young guys' times too. So there's so many different storylines, and obviously, how do they mesh with some new position coaches as well?
Sticking with the football theme, how about the NFL Combine wrapped up and some Huskers performed very well, starting with Ty Robinson. We had mentioned his 40 time. He ran the fastest time of any defensive lineman right over the weekend, but he performed. He was top 4 in all defensive tackle drills over the weekend. And then Thomas Fidone also performed well. Isaiah Nair ran well for his size and was second in the broad jump. So some Huskers doing some damage over the weekend at the Combine. Maybe some draft stock improvement over the last few days.
And obviously, Tommy Hill will wait and see. He didn't work out at the Combine. He'll take advantage of the pro day for that. His size, I think, has always been intriguing. I think out of all of the guys, I think Ty Robinson did the best for his draft stock. I truly do. Unless there was any type of major setback, I feel like he could be solidly on a day 2. I know he was projected as a day 2, day 3 guy. I just think there was a lot of people impressed, a lot of organizations that were impressed. And you and I talked about, then there's the mental part of Ty Robinson, the fact that he's extremely intelligent, wants to be a doctor as well. I mean, there's a lot going for this young man, but his pure physical ability is huge. But let's not also have that same conversation about Ty Robinson without bringing up Thomas Fidone. There's another guy that I think maybe the most important thing for him at the Combine was to show that those injuries are behind him. Because when you look at Thomas Fidone, he was being dubbed as built like the Terminator. That's not a bad thing when people are labeling you that at the Combine. That you can look at his stats and you can say, well, maybe not as productive as you're going to see some of those high-end tight ends. But then you watch him work out, and then you realize, well, he did work himself through a bunch of different injuries, especially with those knees. And based on not only his 40 time, his agility, just catching the ball, running smooth routes, a lot of things about Thomas Fidone that I think probably got a lot of people's attention in a much needed way for Thomas Fidone to find himself in that position to hear his name called. Absolutely, for sure. And, going back to what you had said about the mental part of it for Ty Robinson, I had a scout friend that had talked a lot about, you can test well, you can see the film, but there are times when guys go in these interview rooms and have these meetings with these teams that you sense some red flags when you're having these conversations. Ty Robinson will not be one of those guys. In fact, he will continue to impress when he gets in those rooms and has to have those one-on-one conversations. He will continue to impress these teams as well. And I think where maybe some guys, you start having those conversations, you're like, I don't know about this guy. Maybe he's teetering. Ty will only continue to improve his stock, even outside of what he does performing and the testing part of it. Teams are going to be impressed with him when they meet with him one-on-one and get to have these conversations with him and just chat with him, because he's a guy that's going to take care of business, handle his business, and really be a guy that will be a great representative for a franchise at the next level as well, just with the conversations that I've been able to have with him. Yeah, that's the thing about interior defensive linemen is you want to see them be able to impact early on. And when we were talking about him on Thursday, Jessica, the thing that I think is so interesting is when he sits down, I guarantee you every organization, every general manager and coach walk away thinking, okay, 2 years of very high-level production in the Big Ten where they run the football at a very high level, and he was a huge part of Nebraska being a run-stopping defense. We're just scratching the surface with this guy, a very coachable guy as well. All of those intangibles on top of the production and the stats and then just the physical numbers that you're seeing him test out in. That's why I'm a little bit more convinced that he is a day 2 guy. I would actually now be surprised if he falls back to a day 3. All right, went a little long there. We're going to get to a break. We're back to wrap up hour number 1 next.
The signs are everywhere. It's time for Truck Month at your Midwest Ford dealers. Get $3,000 cash on Super Duty and save on Ford F-150. Both part of F-Series, America's best-selling truck lineup for 48 years. Hurry in, folks. These trucks are running. Drive a new Ford Super Duty with $3,000 cash or 1.9% financing. Only at your Midwest Ford dealers, driven by value.
Hit us up on the text line. Text 402-413-2400 with your Husker thoughts.
What does it mean to be locally owned and operated? For Cenex, it means everything. It means that we know if you take your coffee to go or if you like to stay a while. It means we've helped Little Leagues get jerseys and local festivals get funding. It means we know what our communities need. So you'll always leave Cenex with a full tank, full of snacks, or full of smiles. Or all of the above. And that means the world to us. Cenex, powered locally.
Husker fans, let's call a timeout on the court and in life. When the game gets tough, Nebraska stands together as a family, as a team. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is there. Call, text, or chat 988. It's free, confidential, and staffed with trained counselors ready to listen and provide support. You're part of the Husker family, and every member is valued on and off the court. Remember, in times of need, call a timeout. Call, text, or chat 988. Presented by Nebraska DHHS.
Welcome back. Final segment here of hour number 1 of Sports Nightly. Nick Hanley, Jessica Coody here with you. Nick, the guys in the chat have continued to check upon your golf game, and they have a new goal set out for you. As we talk about maybe warmer weather ahead, you've got a goal for yourself, maybe.
I do. I thank you, Shane, for giving the graphic of where my handicap at 15 currently stands. If I can just get inside 15, then I'm on the better half of that hefty medium right there. My highest was an 11, and I want to get back to an 11. That I feel like I can do that. My first round when we were in Arizona, and those were with rental clubs, was an 86. So I mean that wasn't awful with rental clubs.
Well, they're making sure they stay motivating you, I guess.
I feel like we all need to have a scramble. We need to have a Sports Nightly scramble. We'll get everybody out there. Everyone can put their money where their mouth is, and we'll see what's up.
Well, that's the only way I'm good is in a scramble. So it'd have to be. I don't even want to start putting my handicap anywhere where it can be tracked because I don't need it all over the internet like these guys.
Well, these guys will sniff. They'll sniff it out too, as we learn too. You got to be careful with what you post.
Well, now they're going to hold you accountable as you put your goal out there. So we'll have to keep track. Maybe that could be a sponsored element moving forward is tracking Nick's golf game and handicap improvement.
I like that. Yeah. Let's do that.
We're going to dive into some baseball in hour number 2, but a couple more minutes left here. And Husker softball, maybe had a little bit of a disappointing Friday into Saturday, but then they end up winning another tournament over the weekend. They split with Missouri after dropping to Missouri on Saturday, and then they end up winning on Sunday, beat Wichita State, lose a close one with Oklahoma State, but continuing to still see some positive things out of Husker softball.
And that's the thing right now, coming out of all of the non-conference play, and I know we'll talk more about baseball in the second hour, but if you can look at the whole body of work and you're heading in that right direction, which I think Ron Ravel and this team clearly are, we've talked about it many times, Jessica, and even with Nate Rohr, of the biggest challenge for this team early on was going to be finding the right lineup, being able to find those key roles. Who's going to be behind Jordy Ball when it comes to that number 2 in the circle? Who's going to be the bottom part of your lineup that's going to have the most production? So I think a lot of those answers are being figured out. But as you're trying to go through that, there's going to be some lumps along the way. You might fall short on a game here and there because you are still trying to find that right combination. But I think on the whole, when you look at how this softball season has gone, especially in the non-con, as they get ready for conference play, I think it's been very positive.
Yep, and they'll be home again this weekend too. And again, as we talked about baseball earlier in the hour, depending on weather, might shuffle some things around. But your first chance to see Husker softball at home coming up this weekend. So I know there's been some limited tickets available at huskers.com/tickets. So we'll keep you posted, though, on the schedule as we figure out if weather's going to derail some of the scheduling for this weekend for both ball bat sports. But that wraps up hour number 1. What a fast hour. We got a whole nother hour just ahead. Keep it here on Sports Nightly.
Hit us up on the text line. Text 402-413-2400 with your Husker thoughts.
On game day, every play counts. Now imagine having the same level of control in your field. Valley is where farming meets end zone efficiency. With AgSense remote irrigation technology, farmers become the MVPs of their fields. Real-time, play-by-play control means you're always ahead of the game. Score big with simplified irrigation technology from Valley, improving your life both on and off the field. Find your local Valley dealer at valleyirrigation.com.
What does it mean to be locally owned and operated? For Cenex, it means everything. It means that we know if you take your coffee to go or if you like to stay a while. It means we've helped Little Leagues get jerseys and local festivals get funding. It means we know what our communities need. So you'll always leave Cenex with a full tank, full of snacks, or full of smiles. Or all of the above. And that means the world to us. Cenex, powered locally.
If there's one thing Nebraska's known for, it's our beef. And Nebraska soybeans feed a lot of them, and even more pigs and chickens.
I'm Jason Pinky, a farmer near Craig, Nebraska. Soybeans are vital for feeding our livestock, and they're also a powerhouse protein source for people worldwide. Our world needs protein, and Nebraska soybeans are making a difference.
From tailgate grills to global plates, farmers deliver affordable, nutritious protein to build muscle and energy for everyone. Nebraska soybeans, feeding, fueling, and innovating for the future.
You expect your home to protect everything you love, but you don't expect the ways water is breaking down your crawl space and damaging your home. Musty smells, sagging floors, mold are just a few signs your crawl space is compromised. But there's one way to get answers to all your concerns: a free home inspection from Groundworks. We put water back in its place. Get your free inspection at groundworks.com. License number C142293.
Good evening. I'm Russ Brown. Tonight's ticker is brought to you by the Department of Health and Human Services. David Nunez has been named the Big Ten Freshman of the Week. This past weekend, he led Husker baseball going 7 of 14 at the plate with a home run, 3 RBI, and 4 runs scored. Nunez slugged .714 with an OBP of .533. Tuesday's baseball game against Omaha has been postponed due to the forecasted weather. The game will be made up at Tall Anderson Stadium in Omaha on April the 2nd. Switching to hoops now, Nebraska women's basketball team is headed to Indianapolis for the Big Ten tournament. The Huskers face Rutgers at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. Pre-game coverage will begin here on the HRN at 4:30 with Matt Coatney and Jeff Greash. The winner of that contest will face Michigan at 5:30 on Thursday. There is one game on the docket in the Big Ten tonight. UCLA visits Northwestern. That's an 8 o'clock tip. You can catch the action on FS1. In the top 25, Wake Forest is in Durham to take on the Duke Blue Devils. The Blue Devils lead that one at the half 40-27. And then later tonight, it's number 3 Houston hosting Kansas. You can catch both of those matchups on ESPN. Call a timeout. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is there. Call, text, or chat 988. It's free, confidential, and staffed with trained counselors ready to listen and provide support. Coming up next, it's hour number 2 of Sports Nightly right here on the Husker Radio Network.
Coming to you live from Memorial Stadium, it's Sports Nightly. All the Huskers, all the time. Sports Nightly is presented to you by the NDOT Highway Safety Office, who remind you to buckle up and put the phone down.
Williams to throw it in for the Huskers. Do they have a basket in them on this position? They get it into Morgan, to Williams. Williams up top left against Fox, puts it up, got it! 3-point ball game! Bang! Bang! Presso! 52-49, Nebraska's cut a 19-point deficit to 3.
Petrie, 2 feet in the paint, Markowski backs down Walsh, puts it up, and it counts, and a foul. She's got 30 points for Alexis Markowski.
Here's Peterson's 1-0. That swung on and drilled towards the right field, towards the angling, towards the waterfall, and splashdown. Cale Frost with his second home run of the game. And the Huskers take a 4-3 lead.
2-1 the count. The pitch. Cusack swings and lifts this one. Right center and deep, and it is gone! 2-run home run, Ava Cusack. Her second home run of the inning. 14-0 Nebraska.
Now, here are your hosts, Jessica Coody and Nick Hanley on the Huskers Radio Network.
Welcome in, hour number 2 of Sports Nightly here on this Monday evening. Nick, I do have to start off this hour by giving you some kudos. I think you might know what you're talking about a little bit, as we just heard in the ticker. Devin Nunez, the Big Ten Freshman of the Week. You called that going into the weekend. The freshman had a big weekend, and you've kind of, I guess, foresaw that going into the weekend.
I just thought he deserved some extra at-bats, and clearly great minds think alike. Will both thought the same thing. But now, knowing how Will likes to handle his team, and especially when you're looking for some offensive answers and someone gets an opportunity and all they do is take advantage of it like he did in an entire start and then coming in a pinch hit role in that series against Louisiana, I wasn't surprised that he got the start against Sam Houston and then carried over in the weekend. Guy's hitting a crisp 500 right now and had a home run that I thought was an actual legitimate out of the field of play home run, but apparently bounced back in, so he doesn't get the traditional home run, but still a home run. So he got 2 already. And several hits, multi-hit weekend for him too. There are guys that I know this coaching staff is excited about, from the freshmen even to the redshirt freshmen, that are getting some looks. And yeah, Devin Nunez was definitely a bright spot. You could just tell, though, the swing that he had in Louisiana, even when he wasn't getting on base, he was barreling up some pitches. He was making good adjustments in the game as well, and we saw that again this weekend against very good competition.
Well, the Huskers go down to the Frisco College Baseball Classic and go 1-2, take care of business against Sam Houston, and then we're leading LSU a great chunk of that game, number 2 second-ranked team in the country, and then fall to Kansas State on Sunday. But your big takeaways from the weekend, was it disappointing? I guess, how did you feel about this baseball team coming out of this weekend?
Well, I think it's definitely disappointing from the standpoint that you were on the cusp of, at the very least, going 2-0 before you take on Kansas State on Sunday. If you would have told me that Nebraska would have a lead against LSU in the 7th, and given the way that I think there are some back end of the bullpen arms that are going to be very good for this team, I would think Nebraska's in a great shot or a great position to win a game, have a great shot to win a game against one of the best teams in college baseball. I mean, make no mistake about it. LSU, what they did in that comeback was no fluke. I mean, that is a very good baseball team. And you knew at some point, even when Nebraska's up by the margin of 5 runs going into that 4th before LSU was able to cut into that deficit, you knew they were going to have their moments. You were just hoping that Nebraska offensively would continue what they did in the first 3 innings. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But LSU, between what they've recruited from the high school level and then the amount of transfers that they've gotten over there, this is one of the most talented teams that Paul Johnson has that you're going to see in college baseball. So that was disappointing because they had a shot to take down one of the big dogs right then and there, and it didn't happen for them. And then the Kansas State game, unfortunately, from listening to Ben and David call the action and trying to follow some of it just with the video that I could, it seemed very reminiscent of what we saw in Game 3 against Louisiana, where at times Nebraska looked overmatched in the batter's box. The one thing that I loved about the weekend, especially the first 2 nights, is Nebraska's top of the order, really 1 through 5, was highly productive. And not only Devin Nunez, but Cale Frost woke up in a big way too. And that was huge for that young man because that's another guy that I think is wearing that pressure of, hey, he was a conference player of the year. He was the Summit League player of the year. And that's all anybody ever talks about when they bring up Cale Frost. Oh, the Summit League player of the year. And teams are going at him pretty hard. And he showed you this weekend why he got those accolades. He hit the ball extremely well, too. So you saw in the first 2 games, those first 5, 6 hitters in the lineup were extremely productive. And then yesterday, other than Dylan Carey, really you didn't see much. And so that was, to me, still Saturday night was the most disappointing part of this weekend. But the response, I don't know if this team was still a little bit shell-shocked from what happened Saturday night and almost being able to beat LSU, and they just didn't have the type of approach that you would like to see on a Sunday and an opportunity to still have a winning record in that tournament or not. But now it's that time. You're in conference play. It's one thing to show up in these MTEs, these non-conference tournaments with RPI opportunities, but if you're going to tackle that next phase of the season, it starts this weekend when you start conference play against Washington.
Well, Mason McConaughey goes out on Friday. What's the concern level there, and how do you maybe see them shifting the starting rotation around if he's out for any time at all?
That's the thing. If he's out for an extended period of time and you're hoping that we'll see Mason again this year, just don't know right now. And that was the big dark cloud over a really good performance against Sam Houston, right? Is you have your ace, guy who means so much to this staff, go out, favor in his arm. Again, we're crossing our fingers that it's not to the level that we wouldn't see him the rest of the year. That's the hope. But remember, when we went into the season talking about this team and their staff, is, okay, who's going to be your Sunday guy? Is it going to be Will Walsh? Is it going to be Jackson Brockett? Well, I guess that's the good thing is Ty Horn's got Friday stuff. Make no mistake about that. And I think Ty Horn is showing you, not only is it the physical part, but I think he's showing the mental part of it too. And again, Saturday was a tough outing for him. Saturday was a tough moment for him. He's cruising a little bit early on, goes 4 2/3, and then all of a sudden, LSU, as we knew, that 4th inning happens, and Ty Horn is again, jolted a little bit. But I look at his body language in these moments, and I think he has definitely made that jump that Rob Childress wants to see him. So I have no reservation whatsoever of him being a Friday night guy if he has to be. Hopefully if he has to be, it's not that long. But then who are you going to go to on Saturday is the bigger question for me. Do you go with the Jackson Brockett? Do you go with the Will Walsh? There are some really talented arms. I look at a guy like Carson Yassa who's got big league electric stuff. If he can command the zone, that is another guy that has overpowering stuff. Luke Broderick, who is their closer right now, is another guy that when he was at Iowa Western, he was a starting pitcher. And so how conditioned is his arm? Could he make that Could he make that transition? The creativity that you might have to get with this rotation if you do have Mason McConaughey out for an extended period of time, I think is going to be really interesting. There are options, but what are the right options is going to be the biggest question.
So I know you'll probably continue to prep throughout this week, but what does Washington look like? What kind of teams coming in here in Washington? And again, potentially maybe having to shuffle the scheduling around and maybe looking at a doubleheader on Saturday.
Oh gosh, that's the one thing. I guess for Washington's sake, it's like, hey, welcome to Big Ten baseball. Sitting around waiting for the real field temperature. Not sure how much you had to do that into the Pac-12, but this is what's been interesting about the entire edition of the Big Ten from the Pac-12, and looking at the teams that we know are traditional powers. That UCLA, who's been to the College World Series, even at Charles Schwab Field. USC, I believe, still has, as a program, the most national championships in college baseball. Now, USC, though, is a team that's really been struggling for a while. All of a sudden, they've got 11 wins this season. So USC is also looking very good. Oregon, as we know, was picked to finish first and win the Big Ten. So you've got Oregon. Now, Washington, and the reason I bring up Washington in this conversation is their record you're going to look at and say, okay, very similar to what we saw from Sam Houston. They come in with a 4-8 record. They've played some good teams. They played Coastal Carolina. They played a series with Stanford. Stanford's outstanding. In fact, going into the weekend, I don't know what Stanford did this last weekend, but going into the weekend, they and their softball team were undefeated. But they took 4 from Washington. Stanford did. And then, they played Texas. They lost to Texas. They did play Illinois, but they also played Texas Tech. So what I'm getting at is, it's a 4-8 team, and they've struggled, limped a little bit into that conference schedule, but they've had a absolute buzzsaw of a non-conference. And so the thing that I'm confident about this Washington team is they're not going to be overwhelmed going into Hawks Field and playing Nebraska, because the types of teams that they've played, this is just going to be another solid college baseball team that they're facing this weekend. So don't let that 4-8 record fool you. This is a Washington team that I think they're chomping at the bit to get into conference play. I think just like Nebraska is, get into conference play, not worry about their non-conference start, and try to make hay in conference play.
We talked about this a little bit last week, but this has been something that, I've learned since I've been here, just the perception of the Big Ten Conference and RPI-wise, and just maybe not getting the amount of respect when you talk about the postseason and the committee and all that. Did the addition of those teams from the West Coast help the cause at all? Do you feel like it's going to be a conference season where there might be a few more Big Ten teams getting in because of this?
It's a really good question, and I think I would like to believe that it does, that it really ups the profile of the Big Ten. But these next couple of years, I think, are really going to tell people how much it has. Because if you introduce an Oregon team that's had, out of all of those 4 teams, that has had the most recent success, then a UCLA team that has had success not too long ago, even at the College World Series level, and then you look at a traditional power like USC that all of a sudden is playing out of their mind. And if all of that holds with those 3 teams, we'll see what happens with Washington. But if those 3 teams, and then you look at the teams that have been very solid in the Big Ten, the Nebraskas, the Indianas, the Marylands, and the Michigans. And even I'll throw Iowa in there, Rick Heller and the Iowa Hawkeyes. They've been a solid baseball program too. If you put those teams together, and it only ups the way that they recruit, the resources that are going into these baseball programs, and they're able to win in some of those transfer portal battles. They're able to continue to turn their roster over and bring in more talent. I think it really could, but I think these next 2 years are going to tell you how much. I don't think there's any question. Yes, it is up the profile without question because of the teams that they brought in. But can they even take it to another level to where maybe you're getting 6 teams from the conference in? I don't know if I could even say 7, but I know D1Baseball.com had, in their preseason projections, had 5 teams from the Big Ten going in, which makes sense. Usually it's 2 to 3 from the Big Ten, in previous years. So if you're getting 5, okay, well, then you're throwing in the addition of Oregon and looking at the other combination of USC, UCLA, and Washington. Maybe one of those teams get in, or maybe there's a couple of the traditional Big Ten teams that are loaded. Like, again, a Penn State team that had a great run in the tournament last year, and they bring back a lot this year. So I think there's a lot of eyes on Penn State. Penn State's not a traditional Big Ten baseball power. So I think these next 2 years are going to really answer that question.
Great stuff. All right, we got to work at a break here on Sports Nightly. We've got more to come. Again, 402-413-2400 is that number if you want to be a part of the show tonight. Woodhouse has been a trusted partner in your everyday since 1975. Shop for your next vehicle with the home team at Woodhouse and the official auto dealer of Nebraska Athletics.
In the game of life, we all step up to the plate. Sometimes it feels like we're facing a curveball with no clear path. Call, text, or chat 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It's free, confidential, and staffed with trained counselors ready to listen and provide support. Don't wait for the 9th inning. Reach out, speak up, and let's strike out life's challenges together. Because we're more than players, we're a resilient community. Remember, in times of need, call a timeout. Call, text, or chat 988. It's okay to ask for help. We're here for you. Every swing, every slide. Play ball. Presented by Nebraska DHHS.
What does it mean to be locally owned and operated? For Cenex, it means everything. It means that we know if you take your coffee to go or if you like to stay a while. It means we've helped Little Leagues get jerseys and local festivals get funding. It means we know what our communities need. So you'll always leave Cenex with a full tank, full of snacks, or full of smiles, or all of the above. And that means the world to us. Cenex, powered locally.
Hit us up on the text line. Text 402-413-2400 with your Husker thoughts.
The signs are everywhere. It's time for Truck Month at your Midwest Ford dealers. Get up to $6,000 cash on F-150 and save on Ford Super Duty. Both part of F-Series, America's best-selling truck lineup for 48 years. Hurry in, folks. These trucks are running. Drive a new Ford F-150 with up to $6,000 cash or 1.9 financing plus $3,250 cash. Only at your Midwest Ford dealers. Driven by value.
Nebraskans are choosing chiropractic for better health. Why chiropractic? Because it's safe, drug-free, and a cost-effective treatment option for back and joint pain. Plus, all generations can benefit from natural chiropractic care. Choose chiropractic first for pain relief or to improve your mobility, athletic performance, or overall wellness. Make chiropractic your first choice for better health and find a chiropractic physician near you at nebraska-chiropractic.org. Get your life back with chiropractic.
If you've been looking for a reason to fill up your car with unleaded 88, how about this? Unleaded 88
can help you save big at the pump.
And save the planet by cutting greenhouse gas emissions.
Any car 2001 or newer is approved to use unleaded 88. Speaking of good, it's made from corn, which is great for farmers.
As I was saying, if you need a reason to choose unleaded 88, there you have them. Unleaded 88. Engine smart, earth kind. Visit chooseunleaded88.com to learn more.
You expect your home to protect everything you love, but you don't expect the ways water is breaking down your foundation and damaging your home. Cracks in walls and uneven floors are just a few signs your foundation is compromised. But there's one way to get answers to all your concerns: a free home inspection from Groundworks. We put water back in its place. Get your free inspection at groundworks.com. License number C142293.
When you're in the stands and have the ability to control your irrigation in the field, it's a game-changing moment. Valley is where farming meets end zone efficiency. With AgSense remote irrigation technology, farmers become the MVPs of their fields. Experience real-time, play-by-play action and control that keeps you ahead. Score big with irrigation technology from Valley. It's technology that improves your life and lets you be at the game and in the game. Find your local Valley dealer at valleyirrigation.com.
At Woodhouse, we're cultivating connections that are lifelong. Woodhouse has been proudly serving customers and communities since 1975. From your first test drive to servicing your vehicle, we are dedicated to providing you with a personal and professional experience each and every time. With a variety of top brands to choose from, we guarantee that we can help you find your next vehicle. We're more than just a dealership. We're a trusted partner. Experience the Woodhouse difference. Get started today at woodhouse.com.
Welcome back into Sports Nightly. I'm Jessica Coody, a special guest joining us here on the program tonight. Coming up in March, it's Problem Gambling Awareness Month, and we welcome in great friends from Choices Treatment Center, the sponsor of our football picks each and every week in the fall. But we welcome in Mike Chandra, the Education and Outreach Coordinator for Choices Treatment Center. Mike, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate being here.
Well, you gave us a crazy statistic regarding the Super Bowl this year. How crazy was the betting this year in the Super Bowl?
By the American Gaming Association, estimated total betting to be, just for legal means, being $1.39 billion worth of betting going on. And that's obviously just the legal means. That's not any sort of illegal activity or underground activity associated with the Super Bowl.
So the largest single day betting of all time.
Yes. So every year that number keeps going up, and the Super Bowl is just the largest betting day of the year anyway. But then year after year, that number keeps climbing up and up and up.
Wow. Well, mentioned March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month. Why March? Why is this such a big month for you guys?
March is a huge month. I mean, you're coming off of the Super Bowl. You're right in the middle of March Madness. You've got so many different opportunities to bet from a sports betting standpoint. But then when you combine, people are coming out of the holidays, people are coming out of winter blues, and just looking for things to do during that time. So the problematic behavior can really get out of control a lot during the winter. So having this in March is a good time for people to kind of reset their behaviors and at least think about the problem gambling behavior that they might be occurring, or have a friend or family member that might be going through it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Choices is a proud partner of the Nebraska Gamblers Assistance Program. Tell us about that program.
So what that is that through the Gamblers Assistance Program, it takes money from casinos, from lottery, from Keno, kind of puts it all into a pot so that it offers free outpatient treatment for anybody who's struggling with problem gambling and their loved ones as well. So Choices is very proud to be a part of the Gamblers Assistance Program and have GAP certified counselors who are trained to work with problem gamblers and their loved ones. And it's completely free treatment for anyone who's struggling in the state of Nebraska.
Wow, great stuff. What is Choices doing to reduce gambling-related harm amongst college students?
So we're very proud of the relationship we have with the university. So we do a lot of different work. I've been proud to work with some of our representatives in drug and alcohol education to provide more information to them. And they've done a great job this school year of getting information out, not only to student athletes and to others, but to all students on campus here at UNL. And it's been a really great partnership to have there. I've been able to speak in classrooms about working with some of the staff over in the J School and working with them in their sports media classes, talking to those students over there. Just really working with a whole bunch of different people. I spoke actually earlier this year, thanks to Keith Zimmer over at Life Skills. I was able to speak to all the new student athletes that came into campus this year. Just have a really great partnership. The university is very understanding and very empathetic to this situation with problem gambling. And so they want to make sure that their students are educated and knowledgeable and doing the right thing.
That's awesome. Well, tell us about some of the activities you guys are working for the month of March.
So a lot of what I do out in the community is doing a lot of table sets, doing a lot of informational table sets, doing a lot of screening days. We're actually doing some screening days on campus here as well this month, where we can, if people come by, they will get some information on how to, not only just for treatment services, but also how to responsibly bet. So some responsible gaming tips there, but also just information in general. I also work with communities throughout the state to collect proclamations celebrating Problem Gambling Awareness Month. Also work with the governor's office and the Capitol to get some of those proclamations as well. Just getting out there, doing as many of these media hits as I can, and just trying to get that information out to the general public.
From your experience, what are some of the reasons why people do not seek treatment?
A big thing is stigma, is that people don't understand that problem gambling is right in the DSM-5 as a disorder right next to substance use disorder. But people still view problem gambling as being just a behavioral issue, something you can just stop, not understanding the chemical imbalances that can go on in a person's brain who's engaging in problem gambling. So that fear, that stigma is really a hindrance for people to get out there and to admit that they have a problem. And I mean, people don't understand that there is free treatment in the state. And I think that's a huge hindrance as well, too. And that's why what we do at Choices is so valuable, just to get out there and let people know that there's free treatment, because obviously if you're struggling with gambling, you probably have a financial issue as well, too. So people, the more they understand that that free treatment is available, the more likely they are to come get our services.
What else do people need to know about problem gambling? I guess maybe what are some of the warning signs?
I would say the biggest things I always talk about, and I go into a lot of high schools and college classrooms and talk about this, is the biggest things are lies and limits it comes down to. So if you have to lie about your behavior, or if you're a loved one who notices that you have somebody in your life that is lying about their gambling behavior, then there's most likely an issue there of some sort. And those limits, we always talk about limits, setting limits on your time, your energy, and your money. I mentioned time and energy first because those are the things you can kind of notice right away. You're spending more time away from home, spending more time preoccupied, talking about betting, talking about those bets you're placing. Other things besides the money almost seems like it comes later on for a lot of people where they notice that, but the time and the energy are something that you can really notice right away. And that's something that you can kind of keep an eye on, just kind of keep it in the back of your mind.
So sports betting is everywhere, right? I mean, it is sponsored, every broadcast, it's talked about. So, as we enter March Madness, and a lot of people might be getting involved in that, what's some of your advice and tips for somebody that maybe wants to responsibly bet on some of these sporting events?
Once just following those limits, that's a huge piece to it there, is just setting very firm limits. Having accountability partners, so letting somebody else know, hey, this is what I plan on doing as far as my bets go. Don't let me make other bets. If you're going to a casino or some other place where betting's available, maybe keeping those debit cards put away or out in the car, or whatever that might look like, only bringing in a certain amount of cash and staying for a certain amount of time. Definitely avoid being intoxicated and placing bets while intoxicated. That's a huge piece to it too. And if you yourself or somebody you know seems to be struggling, let them know that there's free treatment options available and that we're out there to help.
Well, tell us about where they can find that help.
So Choices has offices in both Lincoln and Columbus. We have a 24-hour helpline. That number is 402-476-2300. If you're anywhere else in the state of Nebraska, we also have the Nebraska Problem Gambling Helpline, and that number is 1-833-238-6837, 1-833-BET-OVER. So if anybody's struggling anywhere in the state, they can either contact us via the Choices Helpline or the Nebraska Problem Gambling Helpline. Both are free, both are confidential. There's hope and there's help for anyone who needs it.
Anything else we need to make sure and let our listeners know?
Just the big thing is that know you're not alone in this, and that it can feel very lonely, especially if you're in a rock bottom or a very low place as far as financially and emotionally. Just know you're not alone. Know that there is help out there and that there's people willing to help you at all times.
Great information. Thank you so much for being here with us on the program and sharing all of that, but also for your continued support of Husker Athletics and being a great partner of ours here on the Huskers Radio Network.
We appreciate everything we do as far as everything for this show, and then just for the entire athletic department. We're very proud of our relationship with the University of Nebraska.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mike Chandro with Choices Treatment Center, the Education and Outreach Coordinator, joining us here on Sports Nightly. We got to step aside for a break. More to come coming up after this.
If you've been looking for a reason to fill up your car with unleaded 88, how about this? Unleaded 88
can help you save big at the pump
and save the planet by cutting greenhouse gas emissions.
Any car 2001 or newer is approved to use unleaded 88. Speaking of good, it's made from corn, which is great for farmers.
As I was saying, if you need a reason to choose unleaded 88, there you have them. Unleaded 88. Engine smart, earth kind. Visit chooseunleaded88.com to learn more.
Hit us up on the text line. Text 402-413-2400 with your Husker thoughts.
Dear Truckin' Awesome. Want more horsepower in the stable? The Tundra iForce Max is the most powerful Tundra ever. With its electrifying twin-turbo V6, you got everything you need. Saddle up the Tacoma TRD Pro. Its segment-first performance seats are designed to smooth out the shocks when the ride gets bumpy.
The Toyota 4Runner is part mean streak, part wild side, and an all-around icon. Check out that signature power rear window, will ya? Yes, sir. Toyota trucks. Find yours at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
See your Omaha Metro and Lincoln Toyota dealers. Corwin Toyota of Bellevue, Village Point Toyota of Omaha, Baxter Toyota of La Vista, or Baxter Toyota of Lincoln.
Nebraskans are choosing chiropractic for better health. Why chiropractic? Because it's safe, drug-free, and a cost-effective treatment option for back and joint pain. Plus, all generations can benefit from natural chiropractic care. Choose chiropractic first for pain relief or to improve your mobility, athletic performance, or overall wellness. Make chiropractic your first choice for better health and find a chiropractic physician near you at nebraska-chiropractic.org. Get your life back with chiropractic.
On game day, every play counts. Now imagine having the same level of control in your field. Valley is where farming meets end zone efficiency. With AgSense remote irrigation technology, farmers become the MVPs of their fields. Real-time, play-by-play control means you're always ahead of the game. Score big with simplified irrigation technology from Valley, improving your life both on and off the field. Find your local Valley dealer at valleyirrigation.com.
In the game of life, we all step up to the plate. Sometimes it feels like we're facing a curveball with no clear path. Call, text, or chat 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It's free, confidential, and staffed with trained counselors ready to listen and provide support. Don't wait for the ninth inning. Reach out, speak up, and let's strike out life's challenges together. Because we're more than players, we're a resilient community. Remember, in times of need, call a timeout. Call, text, or chat 988. It's okay to ask for help. We're here for you. Every swing, every slide. Play ball. Presented by Nebraska DHHS.
If you've been looking for a reason to fill up your car with unleaded 88, how about this? Unleaded 88
can help you save big at the pump.
And save the planet by cutting greenhouse gas emissions.
Any car 2001 or newer is approved to use unleaded 88. Speaking of good, it's made from corn, which is great for farmers.
As I was saying, if you need a reason to choose unleaded 88, there you have them. Unleaded 88. Engine smart, earth kind. Visit chooseunleaded88.com to learn more.
Welcome back inside our Huskers Radio Network Broadcast Center, which is sponsored by Akrs, the Midwest premier John Deere dealer, supplying the equipment and service to advance agriculture and much more. Akrs, solutions for every field. Welcome back to Sports Nightly. A couple segments left here on our Monday night edition. Nick Hanley, Jessica Coody here with you tonight. Nick, we had talked some about basketball and hour number one, men's basketball. They've got a big one coming up tomorrow night at Ohio State, but I wanted to dive into, because I keep getting asked this question, and I think we still have to, there's still a lot to unfold, but right now, what needs to happen for Nebraska? What do they need to do to get back into the NCAA tournament? And I believe pretty much most projections still have them in the field, but you can't go 0-2 here to close out the regular season. So what are you thinking? What are you leaning towards what Nebraska needs to do here to close out the regular season and into the Big Ten tournament?
Well, I think obviously you have to start with having a solid week. You got to figure out a way. And at least this has been a good thing with Nebraska compared to a year ago, where they were successful earlier in this year compared to last year of going on the road and getting victories. I'm curious how that confidence of getting that victory over Ohio State at home can serve them tomorrow going on the road, because you're going to have two extremely desperate teams remaining in the regular season. You've got an Ohio State team that in some projections has a higher percentage of making the NCAA tournament than what Nebraska does. According to Bubble Watch on ESPN, Ohio State's right around 55% currently of making the NCAA tournament, with obviously basketball power index factors into that, but also you look at the different metrics there involved, that they have a 55% compared to Nebraska right now to 31% chance. So they're playing in a similar situation as Nebraska. They know if they win that game against Nebraska, then they inch even closer and closer to getting on the better side of that bubble. If Nebraska wins on the road, this is where we start talking about what the committee is looking for. If you're a team that is on the bubble and you are really struggling down the stretch, Jessica, you know it and I know it. They factor that in.
Yeah.
That's not a good place to be. And then there's Iowa. Obviously, with what happened in Iowa City where Nebraska let one slip through their fingers, there should be no lack of motivation. It's senior day for Nebraska. But also for Iowa, if they win that game, depending on what their week looks like leading up to it, they're trying to play their way into the Big Ten tournament. They're trying to extend their season. So you're going to get that type of desperation. But if you can go 2-0 this week, I think you and I have talked about this maybe even going back a month ago. If there was a number of wins where we felt confident that Nebraska could achieve and be as solidly in as you can be, I still think it's 19. So if they go 2-0, I still think they're in really good shape. Now, it's a big if, given the way this team is playing. But the bottom line is, because here's the crazy thing. They could go 0-2 this week and still have things work for them that they could make the Big Ten tournament. But, Jessica, if they go 0-2 and they make the Big Ten tournament, wouldn't they have to, at the very least, be in the semifinals to feel like they're in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, it's just, I think they're probably a dilemma for the committee because of the things we've been talking about here over the last month. Is just when they're good, they're really good. And they're a team that deserves to be in. We talked to Brad Taylor last week, who's the VP for men's basketball for the Big Ten tournament. And he said that Nebraska's been a team that he's been pushing to the committee for quite some time. Look at their resume. They've got these impressive wins. But you're right. If they, go into March and go into this tournament on a skid where you're not playing your best basketball, and then you have some crazy things happen where you have some teams win some tournaments that aren't supposed to win, and you're sitting on that bubble, it's not a good place to be going into Selection Sunday. So yeah, I feel like if you if you split these last two, you go 1-1 and then win one in the tournament, you still feel pretty good. But I do think you're right. If you just take care of business and go 2-0 going into the tournament, then you feel pretty good about it because you have put together your last two wins. But yeah, there's still just so much. And we heard Coach Hoiberg saying that just because they've had some disappointing losses, there's still a lot to play for. And their goal of getting back to the NCAA tournament and winning that NCAA tournament, NCAA tournament game is still very much in play. But it just, you have a little bit of concern of which one of these teams is going to show up in these last two games. And you would hope, like you said, that with their last game inside Pinnacle Bank Arena and senior night and a lot to play for, that they would show up and take care of business against Iowa in the last home game. But there's both these teams that you're playing, that's the scary part, have a lot to play for too. So there's a lot of motivation for both teams.
Absolutely. Don't we want to say that about Nebraska? I really do hope that Ohio State and Iowa are also having the same conversation that we're having about Ohio State and Iowa as far as their desperation level, that sense of urgency that they're going to hit you with right out of the gate. I hope they're saying that about Nebraska. I hope Nebraska has that mentality of, we're going to play like a desperate team too. We're going to play with our hair on fire. We're going to come out of the gate and be extremely aggressive and relentless offensively and defensively. And this is where you and I are in agreement when it comes to this team, and the ultimate plus side is they can defend at the highest of levels. And if they're coming right out against Ohio State and they're locking down and their rotations are great, their closeouts are great, and they're setting that tone, I feel the offense will follow with that. But if you're allowing Ohio State to get on a heater right out of the gate, all of a sudden, what is this team doing? Go back to what Fred was talking about earlier today about the team kind of hanging their head a little bit and how that got them into a huge deficit against Minnesota, and they had to claw their way back, and he brought up the best point of it all. Unfortunately, this time, if they do that, they're not going to have 15,000 plus to rally behind them to try to get them back in that game. So I hope they have that desperation mentality like we're talking about the teams that they've faced for the remainder of the regular season.
Yeah, and I guess this is one of the things too, is teams have now seen that when they're not doing what they're supposed to do on the defensive end, there are some opportunities to knock down some shots from the outside. I think that's what we saw against Minnesota, a guy that doesn't shoot well, gets going, and then all of a sudden he's having a career night, and that ultimately ends up what allowed Minnesota to beat Nebraska at the buzzer. But they've got to be good defensively from the start. I think we can call it as it is. Coach Hoiberg certainly has. This is not going to be a team that they can rely on their offense every single night. Are there times where we've seen them really have some explosive offensive nights? Yes. But it's just not something that they can hang their hat on. So they have got to come out and be locked in defensively and not allow some of these guys to have some confidence going that allow them to then rely on that for the rest of the game that ends up hurting them in the end. They've got to be good from the start defensively. I think bottom line, we can talk offense all day, but this team has shown that they've got to be good defensively from the start if they want to win these last two games.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw out something that maybe you agree, maybe you disagree with this. It piques my interest a little bit when it comes to the committee having a decision to make on Nebraska. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier today about Buchton-Gel. If he has, say, he can close out the regular season with 2 solid games offensively. And look, we know he's not Bryce Williams and not even Juwan Gary as far as what they need from him offensively. But if he's playing solid defense and he's giving you double figures in these next couple of games, is there a conversation to be had about Nebraska of saying, well, and they've got Buchton-Gel back. He seems to be healthy.
Yeah.
When he was out, they lost some games. Because, that they'll factor in the injury thing. Now, usually it's the best player on the team. But if it's a key piece and he shows his worth here down the stretch, couldn't they look back at that little stretch that he missed games and Nebraska lost and said, well, that could have been a big part of it?
Absolutely. I think for sure. I think the same could probably be said for Nebraska women's basketball, even when they're talking about potential seeding. Well, they did lose to Washington, but they didn't have Britt Prince. I think that's absolutely a conversation that we've heard even them say when they're revealing the bracket throughout the years is having a key piece gone. And, say what you will, but we've heard it even when over the stretch that the Big Ten broadcasters, the Fox broadcasters, whoever it might be, they talk about, they've said that Berke Buchton-Gel is a big piece. It's out. So if he can come in and then show the valuable piece that he is, then yes, that will help their cause in the argument that, they lost a couple of these games. I think absolutely you hit the nail on the head there. So if he can, we're not talking about score 20 points or even 15. I think if he scores 10 points and they win a couple of these games, then it's a different argument with this team.
Yeah, and that, to me, you're right. And here's the funny thing about this entire conversation we're having. If Buchton-Gel is an offensive presence to what we just labeled, right around 10 points, gives you 5 or 6 boards, maybe has a couple block shots, is still holding his own defensively like he has been, I feel pretty confident Nebraska does go 2-0, unless all of a sudden Bryce is having a catastrophic night or Juwan is. I feel like if he's doing that, everyone around him, including Bryce, Juwan, Asian, Raleigh Worcester, and even an Andrew Morgan, I feel like they're probably all beneficiaries of that as well. I feel like this team is 2-0 if he's able to do that. And so maybe you don't even have to have that conversation about Nebraska on the bubble there.
Mark on the text line said, Nebraska basketball is consistently inconsistent. Unfortunately, I don't think it matters what they do down the stretch because of that. Appreciate the text, Mark. I mean, I have to disagree. They have been inconsistent. There's no doubt about it, but they still have done enough that they're still in that conversation where you're seeing most, if not every, one of the bubble projections, them being on the right side of it right now. So if they close out on the right side of it, then they are still absolutely going to be in that NCAA tournament field. But I think that's where we are all in agreement is we just don't know which one of those teams are going to show up here in these last 2 games. But they have done enough up until this point that if they do take care of business, they're going to be in that NCAA tournament field.
Yeah, this is what surprised me. I felt like going into the season, Jessica, that we would have this conversation about this team as far as, okay, here's what they need to do to get in. Because I didn't expect them to have as much early success against some of the tougher teams that they did. I thought it could take a while for this team to gel, and they surprised me from that facet where defensively they were already locked in right from the get-go. They had that great win in Omaha against Creighton, and I think this team came together and showed you what they could be a lot earlier than I anticipated. So the fact that we're having this conversation is not a surprise. The disappointing part about this conversation is a week and a half ago, we felt very good about this team already as good as locked in. And now with these games that they've played and have dropped, Penn State and Minnesota mainly, those games are leading them to a door, an exit, basically, of playing their way out of it. But I did think if Nebraska could be in this conversation after what they lost a year ago, it would be a good thing. But as we always know, context is key. And the fact that they looked in good shape a week ago and not so much right now, there's something to be said about that.
Carter Burnside also texted in. He said, longtime listener, Nick, you are doing a great job. Appreciate you. So, yes, we have enjoyed having Nick as a part of the team here over the last month or so.
Appreciate that.
But, yeah, I think there's still a lot to play for. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing that we're still talking about this despite the disappointing losses. And there was a time back when they had lost, the 6 in a row that we thought they were going to have to win out to still be in this conversation. And the way things have unfolded, the way that they have, they're still right there with everything on the table for them to make the NCAA tournament field. So I don't know. It's hard to say this is what they have to do, but I don't think they can lose these two without then needing a run in the Big Ten tournament. I think if they go 2-0, you're sitting a little bit better, feeling a little bit better. I think if you go 1-1, you still have some work to do probably going into the Big Ten tournament.
You're right. And I'm glad you brought up the 6-game losing streak and what they did to get out of it. Because if there's anything that Nebraska fans go into this week, knowing how big this week is for their tournament prospects, the fact that they did it once should at least give you some confidence that this team has the ability to do that again. And remember, they started that streak on the road as well. So hopefully that can repeat itself.
Appreciate the text coming in on the text line. Woodhouse has been a trusted partner in your everyday since 1975. Shop for your next vehicle with the home team at Woodhouse and the official auto dealer of Nebraska Athletics. We're back to wrap up the show with some weekend winners. Keep it here.
How many zeros are in 1 billion?
9.
That's a lot of zeros.
Why do you ask?
Well, I heard that the Nebraska Lottery has given $1 billion back to Nebraska since 1993, and all 93 counties have benefited.
That's a lot of counties.
Yeah, the money has gone to protect our state's environment, improve education, maintain facilities at the state fair, and support problem gamblers assistance.
That's a lot of, good stuff.
Well put.
Learn more at nelottery.com.
Hit us up on the text line. Text 402-413-2400 with your Husker thoughts.
In the game of life, we all step up to the plate. Sometimes it feels like we're facing a curveball with no clear path. Call, text, or chat 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It's free, confidential, and staffed with trained counselors ready to listen and provide support. Don't wait for the 9th inning. Reach out, speak up, and let's strike out life's challenges together. Because we're more than players, we're a resilient community. Remember, in times of need, call a timeout. Call, text, or chat 988. It's okay to ask for help. We're here for you. Every swing, every slide. Play ball. Presented by Nebraska DHHS.
Want to boost Nebraska's economy and help the planet? It's as easy as filling up your tank. Switch to soy-based biodiesel to cut greenhouse gases by up to 74% and support biodiesel growth.
I'm Greg Anderson, a farmer near Newman Grove, Nebraska, and biodiesel has transformed our farm. It cuts emissions, raises the cetane number, and improves fuel lubricity.
So ask for biodiesel where you fill up. It benefits our air, economy, and Nebraska soybean farmers. Nebraska soybeans, feeding, fueling, and innovating for the future.
Welcome back. Final segment here of Sports Nightly on this Monday evening. Jessica Coody, Nick Hanley here with you. So the schedule for this week is fluid because of the weather and because of tournament games. But we will have, turns out we will have an hour of Sports Nightly coming up for you tomorrow night because of the postponement of the baseball game, which was from Matt Coatney, one of the football assistants. I don't know which one. We will determine that tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. And then Wednesday, we will have the women's basketball Big Ten tournament game against Rutgers. Matt Coatney, Jeff Grace will be in the air starting around 4:30 on Wednesday. Thursday, we'll see, depending on, hopefully we have another Big Ten tournament game to bring you here on the network with women's basketball. And then Friday, we were planning on maybe bringing you softball if it works out, if the weather will allow. And that's, again, depending on what women's basketball does. So we still have a lot to figure out here over the next few days, but at least for tomorrow night, we'll be on the air with you for an hour. And then Wednesday night, we'll have women's basketball. But stay tuned. We'll keep you posted with the schedule. Hopefully, we got a lot of women's basketball games coming up for you here over the next week. But we have not had a chance here because we've had a lot of basketball games on Monday nights. We haven't had weekend winners in a long time. I can't even remember the last time that we've had that. But we usually like to close out Monday night show with our weekend winners. Nick, what do you have for us?
There's a lot to choose from. I want to give a shout out, especially to the Omaha men's basketball team. They won the Summit League regular season for the first time in school history. Chris Crutchfield, who you know as well, Kyan Brown, who's gone viral with kicking of the trash can. That's awesome for them, and hoping that they can get it done up in Sioux Falls. I want to give them a shout out. Hey, St. John's winning the first Big East title since '85 is something. I want to also, as you know, I'm a golf fan. Joe Highsmith going 19 under the Cognizant Classic. He's the first player in 9 years to be right on the cut line, but then have back-to-back 64s to win that. But I got to go with Devin Nunez. 7 of 14, home run, 3 ribbies, 714 slugging percentage. He had 3 multi-hit games at the Frisco College Baseball Classic. Well done by the young fella, the freshman. I think we're just getting started with that guy.
So, like you said, so many to choose from, but I'm going to give it to Jenna Rogers of Nebraska Track and Field. She wins the Big Ten indoor title in the high jump while setting a meet record. I believe that's her 4th Big Ten title. And then, so they'll head to the indoor championships coming up. And then outdoor season will be here before you know it. But the outdoor is where this track team shines. They got some throwers that they'll add to the mix. But Tyus Wilson, who's been on the show as well last year, and he also won the Big Ten title. So they sweep the high jump champion. But I got to give it to Jenna Rogers, just an incredible student athlete, and she brings home some more hardware. There's going to be lots of that happening for this track and field team over the next few months. Before heading to indoors, and then also when we move into outdoors, we're going to continue to talking. There's already been tons of school records, personal records, meet records, and we're going to keep saying that. They've just they're loaded with talent, and so it's going to continue to be a talking point here on this program over the next few months.
Yeah, and I think we could both agree if it wasn't as loaded as a list, we could even throw Ty Robinson with what he did at the Combine. I think was definitely a big W for him as well.
I mean, it was one of those weekends. There's so much was going on and happening that you could choose from a lot. Also, we should mention too, as we have a lot going on, but wrestling will have Big Ten championships coming up this weekend, and a lot of these matchups you're going to be seeing here this weekend will be the same guys that will be competing for national titles coming up too. But Nebraska wrestling goes in as a team that, hey, they're going in fully expecting to compete for Big Ten titles and national titles as well. But postseason kicks off for them as well coming up this weekend.
Yeah, looking forward to that, and best of luck to Mark Manning. They've had some great moments this season too. That is a tough team, and they've got some individuals there that are more than capable of making some noise. So looking forward to that.
Oh, man, it is March. Welcome to March. Again, the most wonderful time of the year as we talk basketball postseason, wrestling postseason, and all these things overlapping. We just try to talk about as much as we can here on the show. We don't always get to all of it, but it's a fun time of the year. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to the big dog, Jeremiah Sirles. Also, Choices Treatment Center, great sponsor here with us. We'll have an hour tomorrow from 6 to 7 leading into men's hoops. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
Hit us up on the text line. Text 402-413-2400 with your Husker thoughts.
You expect your home to protect everything you love, but you don't expect the ways water is breaking down your basement and damaging your home. Mold, cracks, and of course visible water are just a few signs your basement is compromised. But there's one way to get answers to all your concerns. A free home inspection from Groundworks. We put water back in its place. Get your free inspection at groundworks.com. License number C142293.
The signs are everywhere. It's time for Truck Month at your Midwest Ford dealers. Get $3,000 cash on Super Duty and save on Ford F-150. Both part of F-Series, America's best-selling truck lineup for 48 years. Hurry in, folks. These trucks are running. Drive a new Ford Super Duty with $3,000 cash or 1.9% financing. Only at your Midwest Ford dealers, driven by value.
If you've been looking for a reason to fill up your car with unleaded 88, how about this? Unleaded 88
can help you save big at the pump
and save the planet by cutting greenhouse gas emissions.
Any car 2001 or newer is approved to use unleaded 88. Speaking of good, it's made from corn, which is great for farmers.
As I was saying, if you need a reason to choose unleaded 88, there you have them. Unleaded 88. Engine smart, earth kind. Visit chooseunleaded88.com to learn more.
What does it mean to be locally owned and operated? For Cenex, it means everything. It means that we know if you take your coffee to go or if you like to stay a while. It means we've helped Little Leagues get jerseys and local festivals get funding. It means we know what our communities need. So you'll always leave Cenex with a full tank, full of snacks, or full of smiles.